Hi, welcome to my Bookish Academy Awards. This is a book tag created by Regan over at Peruse Project, so I will leave her links down below. But basically, she's taken all the categories from the Academy Awards and converted them into Bookish Awards. So I thought it was appropriate to do it at this time since it is Academy Awards time. And personally, I don't really care that much about movies. I find them a little bit slow and boring. But what I do care about is books. So let's give some books some awards. I will also say I would love for this to be based on all the releases in 2019, but I just am not able to read that many new releases. So instead, this is going to be based on the books that I read in 2019. And there were some good ones. So the first award is Best Male Actor, or in bookish terms, Best Male Protagonist. And there were some really good candidates for this, but I decided that I had to go for Kaladin from The Way of Kings, or the Stormlight Archive series that I started last year by Brandon Sanderson. Kaladin is a spearman who is part of this war that's going on. He's just suffered through so much, but at the same time he's a really great leader, and I think that anybody who has an interest in like servant leadership or organizational culture should really consider reading the Stormlight Archives because it has some really interesting things to say about that. Then we have Best Actress or Best Female Protagonist. Again, there were a lot of really great candidates for this award, but I would have to go with Micah from the Monstrous series by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda. Micah is half human, half arcanic, so she's a little bit animal, sort of. And she also has this old god demon type thing growing out of where her arm used to be. So she's trying to deal with this whole demon possession thing at the same time as getting revenge on the people that enslaved her when she was a child. As I've said before, I absolutely love the art in this graphic novel series, and I just think Micah is such a strong character and so beautifully depicted. Then we have Best Cinematography or Best Plot Twist. And for this, I actually have this book here. Most of these books I don't have, unfortunately, because I wasn't working this year, and so I had to rely on the library a lot. But a lot of these books I want to buy. I did, however, win a giveaway where I got the 5th season. And this has a plot twist that I just think is so different from all the other plot twists in the other books that I read this year. In fact, whenever I talk about this book, I feel like I have to be very careful not to give away the plot twist, because in some ways it's obvious, but in other ways it's very tricksy, and I really loved it. Then we have Best Costume Design or Best Book Cover, and for this, when I looked through the books I read last year, the ones with the most beautiful covers were actually ones that I only read because of the cover, and I didn't actually end up liking them. And so I don't really feel like, even though they were beautiful covers, I don't feel like they deserve to win the award. So instead I picked a book that I really love the aesthetic of, and I also think it really represents the book inside quite well, and that is Middle Game by Sean Maguire. I just really love this front cover, and I think once you've read the book it also means even more to you, which to me is a sign of a good cover design. Then we have Best Supporting Actor and Actress, which is Best Male or Female Sidekick, and this is actually the only category where I have reused the same books or the same author. I tried mostly to kind of distribute things somewhat, but this category there were so many options and they were all books that I wanted to include in other categories, so that's what I've done. And I've tried to go for side characters where I don't think the story could have been the same without them. So for male sidekick, I've gone with Mr. Kindly from the Nevernight series. Possibly, I'm not sure if he's really male, but close enough. He is actually a shadow cat. I say he, I'm pretty sure he's referred to as he in the book, but he is a shadow cat that is like Mia's familiar in the story Nevernight, and he eats Mia's fare as she goes around becoming an assassin. One, I just love the concept of that, but also I loved his sense of humor and I loved everything that he added to the story. Then for female sidekick, I have decided to go with one of my favorite characters from the year, and that is Erin from Middle Game. Now, I haven't really heard anybody else talk about Erin. I know that Nikki from I Read Past My Bedtime was like, who? And didn't even remember Erin. But for some reason when I was reading Middle Game, I just got really attached to Erin. I think she has gone through some really difficult times, but I really appreciated the things that she did to try and make things better. If you don't know, Erin is basically one part of a pair of alchemically created twins. Unfortunately, most of the book she has to do without her twin brother. Even though she's part of a failed experiment, she's trying to really help Roger and Dodger, the main characters, to get free where she wasn't able to. And I am just going to pretend that she got a happy ending because that's what I wanted to happen. Then we have Best Adapted Screenplay or Best Book to Movie Adaptation. Now, I actually struggled a bit to think of any book to movie adaptations that I've watched, and I've actually gone for a book to TV adaptation because I'm much more likely to watch TV shows than movies. I just find most movies are really slow paced, and TV shows in a much shorter time seem to pack in a lot more plot and a lot more character development and just a lot more everything. So I prefer TV shows. And the only one I could really think of that I watched was The Umbrella Academy, which was created by Netflix and originally was a graphic novel series by Gerard Way and Gabriel Ba. I will say the graphic novel series, even though it has some really great concepts and some really great art, I do think the narrative structure is not the best, and I think they took the ideas in the graphic novel and really turned them into a great story for the TV show, which was amazing. Then we have Best Animated Feature, and for this we're picking a book that would work well in the animated format. And for this, there were quite a few, but what I've decided to go with is The Apocalypse of Elena Mendoza by Sean David Hutchinson. This is a story about a girl named Elena Mendoza who discovers that she can heal people and that perhaps she needs to stop the end of the world from happening. The reason why I think this would work really well in animated format is because Elena often sees inanimate objects that talk to her, and so as well as this being a really good story, I just think that aspect of the book would be much better told in an animated format than anything else. Then we have Best Director or an author you discovered for the first time, and for this I tried to find an author that not only did I read for the first time, but they're one where I've now read multiple things by them and I want to read more by them. So that led me to pick Sylvain Neuvel. He is the author of The Themis Files, which is a series that I read and loved last year, and also he wrote the short story The Test, which is another one that I loved. I think he just has a really great writing style and a really great way of analyzing real life issues through science fiction. Then we have Best Visual Effects or Best Action in a Book, and for this I almost went with Kate Daniels, which is my favorite series ever. They're always really detailed and well described sword fighting scenes in Kate Daniels series. This is the only one where I'm going to mention the runner-up because I didn't manage to give Kate Daniels anything and I think she deserves an award. However, I also think that the Nevernight series deserves an award other than the Sidekick one. So I'm going to give this award to the Nevernight series because I do think there were some really amazing fight scenes. They were really well described. I loved the way that J. Kristoff incorporated the shadow magic into the fight scenes and just how bloody and gory he managed to get. Then we have Best Musical Score or Best Music in a Book to Movie Adaptation. As I said, The Umbrella Academy was the only one I could remember watching, and I do think that it had a pretty good soundtrack, so I'm gonna go with that. I guess I lied about the Sidekick one being the only one where I duplicated things, but I don't really have any other option for this. Then we have Best Short Film or Best Novella or Short Book, and for this I went with Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This was such a strange little book. I think it was about 200 pages, so not too long, not too short, but pretty short. It was definitely a quick read. And this is about this cafe where you can, if you sit in a particular seat, which you can only sit in under certain circumstances, you're then able to go back in time. But you still have to sit in that one seat that you went back in time on, and you can't get up, so you can only talk to anyone who was in the cafe at that time that you've gone back to. And then once your coffee gets cold, you go back to the present. It's such a weird little story. It's kind of told in 4 chapters, each chapter being its own story, but there are characters throughout the stories that link them all together, and I just thought it was a really cool concept, and I got quite emotionally attached to the characters. Then we have Best Picture or Best Standalone. Now, as I read a lot of fantasy, a lot of the books that I read last year were in fact series. So there weren't that many to choose from for this list. And in the end, I ended up going for a thriller. If you've been watching my videos for the last year, you probably can guess. I'm going to go with Big Little Lies by Leah Moriarty. This is a very hyped book. A lot of people know about it. Reese Witherspoon made a TV show, which I just started watching at Christmas, but I didn't finish it, so it doesn't count for that adaptation question. But again, it's a TV show, not a movie. I just don't watch movies, but I do read books, and Big Little Lies was one that I thought was really great. It was released a little while ago now, so I'm, as always, a little bit behind the times, but we basically have this group of mothers of these kindergarten children, and you know right from the beginning that at the end of the story someone is going to die, and so you're trying to work out who is it that's going to die and who is it that's going to kill them. And it's just a really great story told in a really great way, and it's one of the few thrillers that I really love. Then lastly we have Best Documentary, which is Best Nonfiction or Historical Fiction. I don't really like historical fiction, so let's just call it Best Nonfiction. And for this, I think there were a few good nonfictions that I read this year, but the one that I probably got the most out of was The Anatomy of Story by John Truby. This is a book about how to put your stories together. I still haven't put my story together, so I guess from that perspective it's debatable whether it actually did its job, but it did make me think about how to construct stories in a really different way than I had previously, so I think it's definitely a good one to read if you have an interest in writing a novel. So those are the books from the ones that I read last year that I think deserve all the awards. There was actually quite a few other ones that I didn't manage to squish into any of the categories, but these ones are all ones that I recommend. So I'm glad I had the chance to bring them all up again and recommend them to you. I would love to know if you've read any of the books I talked about today, what you thought about them, or otherwise if you have an interest in reading any of the ones that I've talked about today now that I've mentioned them. Otherwise, as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you're having a really wonderful day, and I will see you next time.